Trevor, would you describe the charter market as still hot already?
I guess yes is the answer to that. I mean, obviously the market ramped up significantly after COVID. I mean, and then it's kind of plateaued. But what we're seeing within that sort of relatively stable market, which is obviously at a high level, is plenty of demand. So yeah, it continues. And what I've been watching it, you alluded to it earlier on, very, very carefully over the last month or so with everything that's been going on. And so far, so good.
Philip, would you agree? I think there's definitely growth. There's definitely opportunity. It's where it will be coming from, and where you need to position yourself is going to be important going forward. We see some new clients in the market. Everybody talks about tech and so on, but I think ultimately it comes back to relationships. And if you build those relationships, then you can transfer them onto a tech platform. But I definitely think there's some hotspots. And I think that may even affect the charter fleets that we are seeing. And I know we are speaking about that a bit later as well. So yes, generally I see there's some good growth going forward.
Would you agree?
Absolutely. There is new demand, new kind of customers in the market, especially fintechs and new millionaires who are moving to Dubai. So we see, and good infrastructure. So we feel there is a new growth. And of course, all are looking for Saudi Arabia right now. Yeah.
Saudi keeps coming up.
Yes, keeps coming.
Omar, you're in charge of this region for Victor. How do you see this region compared to your colleagues in London or America?
I mean, I think with all the people moving into the Middle East right now, especially the young entrepreneurs, the tech founders, the family offices, there's a lot of demand moving into the Middle East. And I think that plays into the growth, and that plays into the amount of charter business required here in the Middle East compared to Europe nowadays.
And have you seen your clients in the region reacting to financial markets in the US and Europe going down?
I mean, I think it's slowed down compared to the beginning of the year with all the tariff talks and all these speeches coming out at the beginning of April. But I think we're still using private jets as a mitigation, as a risk mitigator, rather than something that we use for luxury nowadays.
Do you think your customers are slightly insulated from the US market?
There is uncertainty, of course, but I'm so lucky about that my company, we always have a customer who fly over the last 30 years in our market. And we were okay, like not that bad. But globally, I spoke to my fellows in US and UK, and their policies, not only they're talking about weather, but they talk about the financial, sorry, the financial crisis. And there was some, dip in the region. But I think it's coming back. It depends on season to season as well.
Philip?
It depends on the client ultimately. Private aviation has always been a bit more resilient to market movements. I think you would always see a bit of a lag when it comes to market volatility. Also, again, it speaks to your client, depends on where they invested, what they invested in, where they're going. The type of clients that we look after in this region is very much focused and in this region, developing in Saudi, developing in India. So for them, it's more an opportunity that I would think it's a deterrent to travel. It may be even creating opportunities for them.
Trevor, you obviously have a floating fleet that goes around the world, but the Middle East is so strong at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Our floating fleet probably spends, 55% of its time somewhere between Los Angeles and Western Europe, which is a key area for us. And then travel into the Middle East really comes from sort of typically Europe into the Middle East and out again. We don't really do a lot of regional transportation around here because we kind of have the wrong airplane for that. The business is really orientated to the ultra long range stuff. So it's very interesting to see what's happening in the Middle East. The initiative by Saudi, very interesting. My experience was when I was working with Cessna on the sales side, when we saw the Eastern European economies integrated into the European Union, there was a dramatic jump in the use of business aircraft. And I think where where the markets are freed up, you'll see people travel more and more because it's just easier to do that. So lots of exciting things happening in the Middle East. It's something for us to watch.
If you were selling aircraft into Saudi, would you rather be selling big jets or light jets?
Very good question. I think, Saudi and the Middle East, more generally, the entry-level airplane was really sort of like what I would describe, let's say, a super midsize or a Challenger kind of aircraft. I think from an environmental perspective, particularly if you don't have an aircraft with an APU, because it gets, as you may have noticed, a little bit hot here. So having an airplane without an APU is a little bit of an issue. So although the GCC as a region is great for a short, 2-hour duration aircraft like a Citation or a smaller Embraer or something, the market has always preferred the bigger airplanes, more baggage space, APU, and I think that still remains the sort of focus here. So, and in Saudi Arabia particularly, big airplanes, long range, always been their market preference.
Okay, Omar, what are you seeing in the region for demand? It's strong. Are you seeing new customers, or are you seeing a lot of people who've actually just moved to the region?
I mean, with people moving here from Europe, Asia, the UK, even the US, I'm seeing a lot of demand for the light to super mids. I mean, we've already been saturated for years with the heavy jets, the ultra longs, and the VIP airliners. So in terms of what we're looking at right now is a lot of operators speaking to us about moving their fleets into the Middle Eastern region, into Africa, to facilitate the regional travel, such as the domestic Saudi flights, the intra-GCC flights, and this is the kind of demand that we're seeing increase day by day since the beginning of the year. I mean, you've got the young entrepreneurs, like I was saying, the family offices moving out of Europe, and they're usually flying on the short sectors in Europe, and this is what the kind of aircraft that they are used to in Europe, and they want to move here to the Middle East.
Just to add on to that, I think what's going to be interesting is the education process on the client side. Exactly like you mentioned, Trevor, the market was almost grown and developed on this Global Express Gulfstream size model, whether there's 2 or 3 passengers on board or 10 or 12. We do see, especially with the aircraft that we operate, the Global Express, that a lot of short cycles, 40 minutes, 1 hour, 20, and it's not really what that aircraft was designed for. And then you've got 2 or 3 passengers on board. So I think as much as there's going to be maybe a change and a shift in the fleet and the type of aircraft operators specifically in the region and out towards India, there's going to be equally the same amount of effort that would need to be put into the clients to kind of educate them that it's, you'll have a great cabin experience. You wouldn't necessarily have 3 zones to enjoy it in, but it will do exactly what you need. It will have good internet speeds if you can offer that. And ultimately, it's just, creating that comfort element for them. But, maybe taking in some real estate for that.
Do you think there's enough aircraft in the region?
I think there is enough aircraft in the region because UAE and Middle East is a hub to go to Africa and Europe and United States, especially long range. I feel there is, we need to add more, I don't know if my fellows are agreeing on that or not, we need to add more BBJ or Airbus or lineage kind of aircraft because this part of the world, especially they're looking for a cargo hold, they want to carry a lot of luggage together, I think entire house. So I feel still there is a gap, we should fill towards that. And obviously heavy jets are enough and long range are there because of most of the big operators, they moved and they parked their aircrafts here. I mean, during winters and peak season, you can say. So
if you could add any aircraft to the region, you would add ACJ, BBJ?
Yeah, ACJ or lineage. Lineage is more cost effective. Yeah.
Shorter range though?
Shorter. Yeah, Europe, up until Europe. This part of the world, they go mostly Europe and UK and Africa and at times Asia. So I think 9 to 10 hours aircraft range is pretty good for this market. Yeah, with a lot of cargo holds, like 1 ton.
Yeah, you can always hire another one to fly behind it with the luggage.
I mean, sometimes it does happen.
Omar, what would you add?
I would be looking into adding a BBJ, an Airbus, a Lineage, but I would also be looking into adding the super mids and the mid-size aircraft into the region. Yeah, for those short hops where you don't have to pay 3 times the price for a 40-minute flight.
From our side, looking at the clients we're servicing at the moment, super mid would be a good solution. And again, it speaks to the business and who you're servicing at the end of the day. There will always be that niche opportunity. And I agree with you, ACJ, BBJ, there will always be that niche opportunity in that region, especially and even more so maybe moving into Africa and then bringing in some Chinese business across. We do see those opportunities as well. The NASJet colleagues and so on, we know that their aircraft aren't always available. There's a few options in the market, so I really do think that something like that would have its worth. But with the type of clients that we're seeing at the moment and the growth that we're seeing is probably super mid. And then we should probably start talking about things like eVTOLs and so on, with the vertiport being developed next to Emirates head office. What is that going to bring into the fore? Is that really just connecting Dubai with Abu Dhabi or Ras Al Khaimah? I mean, that's another region we shouldn't discount. There's a lot happening up there. And how are we going to connect like the major entry point into the UAE with a region like Ras Al Khaimah? So, yeah.
Trevor, what aircraft do you think the region needs?
My experience is that when you get down into the smaller aircraft, from the exposure that I've had to it, is that mostly you continually offered the same aeroplanes, seem to be. So I'm not actually sure there's enough aircraft in the area, and in terms of on demand. So I mean, really, that market niche, as Philip said, the super mid-size is probably, if you were going to have a new business model for us, that would be the aeroplane, I think, for that area. For, like I said, nice wide cabin, APU, that kind of thing. Shorter sectors, 2 to 4 hours, was in and around.
If you, single word answer, or you can have 4 words, which country are you most excited about in the region, Trevor?
In the region?
Actually, you have to say Qatar, don't you? But apart from Qatar.
Apart from Qatar, yeah. I mean, obviously, the two biggest markets are Saudi, which the opening of the Saudi market is a really interesting thing. I mean, obviously, the UAE is a much more developed market in that sense.
Which do you think will grow more?
That's a really good question. Comes down to economics, right? I mean, certainly the Saudi government is very aggressively moving to open up the economy, encourage investment, but so is the UAE government as well. So they're both in, as is the Qatari government. So everybody's engaged in the same. So looking at the sum of the parts, the area has a significant amount of investment to at its disposal to generate growth. So I mean, the area itself is very, very exciting.
I'm going to let you off. Philip, which is the most exciting country in the region?
Also Saudi, and hats off to Garca in terms of what they've actually brought to the table. There was obviously opportunities that you could actually operate in the region, but quite restrictively so, and specifically on the crew side, as was mentioned this morning. Maybe a bit further afield, we all talk about India. We just never know what's going to happen there. We always, I spoke with an operator there, they operate a legacy, and they do 70 hours a month, and there's just not enough capacity, and we heard so this morning as well. So, but by virtue of what Garca is doing in the region, I think that immediately creates an opportunity, and that's definitely something worth exploring.
Omar?
I totally agree. I think Saudi is the next emerging market. With Garca opening up the cabotage rules, I think the demand's gonna soar. I mean, no operator is not gonna want to base their aircraft there, especially with the whole gen deck rules as well changing. You got 6 months now instead of 72 hours. That gives you the ability to do at least 100 sectors a month, if not more.
Of course, Saudi, and I feel UAE as well, because of regional war, and all millionaires are moving to UAE, and there are certain demands from the young millionaires as well. So I feel positive about UAE and Saudi both at this time.
Do you think there's opportunities for non-Saudi brokers to get into that market?
Yeah, I don't speak Arabic, and I have a lot of Saudi client. I think this part of the world is different. They have to trust you to start working with you. It doesn't matter which language you speak. So, and it's all about the relationship. And once you have and win their trust, and it doesn't matter you speak Arabic or not. I mean, you really need an Arabic-speaking person in your company, because of if you are dealing with the government, because they send messages in Arabic. But it's not that hard to make clients. Everyone speaks English nowadays.
Are you excited about getting Saudi opening up for Victor?
Yeah, I think this is our next step forwards as well. I mean, we've only just recently opened up our Abu Dhabi headquarters last year, and we're already looking into expanding into Saudi Arabia and making sure that we meet the demand that's going to be present there. So it's a very exciting opportunity, I think, for us.
Brokers are dependent on operators, so I'm sure if there's aircraft that they can sell, they will certainly go and look for clients if they don't already have the clients. So yes. It was mentioned this morning as well. You'll have that first wave of flood of everybody going there and hotels being booked out by brokers and setting up meetings and all of that. But ultimately, it comes back to previous relationships, previous opportunities that was mined or put together. So, and that will naturally then suss out who will be staying long term and maybe even opening up office and shop in Saudi as well.
It's all about relationships.
Yes, exactly.
I was interesting. I was with somebody yesterday who very wealthy individual, and the gentleman who organizes all his flights has worked with him for 30 years. And I think you see a lot of that here in the Middle East. It takes a long time to establish and develop the trust. So, the idea of people sort of descending on the market and instantly getting lots of business, the cultural environment you have in Saudi and other places in the Middle East, it actually takes you a long time to gain the trust and therefore get the business. So you have to invest in the market in the long term.
Although you think there is a risk that we are going to see people descending on it?
I'm sure if the demand picks up, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Lots of bees around the honeypot, right?
We've got some great audience questions. Does anyone want to do an old school question? Anyone can answer this one. What is the demand for medical charter in UAE, and are there enough aircraft to meet demand?
I think most of the clients that are requiring medical charters in this time are directly going to the operators. We've seen a drop in medical charter requests.
There are some companies which they are directly promoting for medical charters in the market, and they're focusing on that. So most of them, they know them, like most of the clients.
Okay. Is the Middle East demand for private aviation only leisure? Is it only a leisure market, Philip?
No, I would say that's just like any other market. It's a mix of leisure and business. Yeah.
No, it's like a time machine. Some of my friends said from Saudi panel, Mazen had said this, yeah. So yeah, it's all about time, and especially when you do road trips within Middle East region, I think private jet is the best idea to finish all the 5 or 6 countries in one day, maybe 6 landings any aircraft can do with 12 hours crew duty time. So it's not about leisure, it's all about time.
Are customers more sensitive to the age of the aircraft or the condition of interiors, paints, and standards of service? What are customers most influenced by?
You do get a lot of customers that will specify the first thing in their charter request is, I don't want to fly anything that's less than 10 years old. I just want to fly something that's 2020 and above. I'll fly.
But do they change their mind if you come back with a cheaper quote?
Not all the time, but yes. Sometimes they'll look at the price and be like, okay, yeah, I'll just take that 2002 Global Express.
Yeah, it initially, there's always some sort of discussion initially about the age of the aircraft. But I think it's that old adage of once you get on board and once you see what's being presented is almost more important. You know, how does the cabin present? How does the crew present? What's your in-flight experience? And also as an operator, what's your reputation for AOGs? You know, that's also very important as an operator to the brokers, because they get to either know you as somebody that pulls the aircraft last minute for something that's wrong, or you opt to take another aircraft. So from a client side, as much as we sell to the client in terms of the amenities, the age discussion has come up once in this past year that I've been in Dubai and with a company. And interestingly enough, it was an end user, and I asked him, well, have you recently flown with Emirates? And he came back to me and said, yes. And I said, do you by chance remember your flight and all of that? Ultimately, I could track it back to what aircraft it was. It was a 16-year-old Boeing 777. So I asked him, before you got to the aircraft, did you ask them what the age of the aircraft would be? And, you know, then he kind of chuckled. Obviously, you need to know the client. It's not something you can go and ask anybody, but ultimately, it's what's being offered on board. Either the client is going to come back to the broker or the operator to say that the interior is a mess. You know, this doesn't matter if the aircraft's 5 years old, it's been used and abused.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, obviously, age of aircraft is a big one. Internet capability, which is why we're retrofitting the fleet with Starlink at the moment on all the Gulf streams. And then, of course, it can go right the way over to the spectrum, probably not from one of the person asking the question wouldn't ask this particular point, but I did have one of our customers complain to me that our complimentary toothbrushes were too hard for his teeth. So it just shows you the level of detail that they go to.
I always find that when I fly on Qatar.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see what we can do for you. Right?
It's not just me.
I think one more thing to add is, I think the most important requirement here in the Middle East is not internet or the age of the aircraft, it's smoking on board.
Yeah.
This is one of the major...
And Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the major requirements is smoking allowed on board. If not, then get me another aircraft.
Wi-Fi 100%. But then every broker has their unique way of selling. If you started with your client from the day one, giving a new aircraft they're used to with the new aircraft, you're giving any other aircraft they're used to, depends on what kind of client you're serving with. Yeah.
What percentage of jets allow smoking?
I think about 70% of the jets here in the Middle East allow
Mostly
smoking.
Middle East, yes, it's mandatory.
Trevor, this is a nice one for you. Does owner approval affect the charter attractiveness of an aircraft?
Yeah, I mean, because it certainly drives the economics of the deal, I would say, more than anything else. Yeah, I mean, people come to somebody like us because obviously we don't have an owner approval per se. So that's a definite advantage for us in the market. Also enables us to price more differently as well. So yeah, it's a significant factor. But, you know, like everything in the market, the owner approval airplanes have their place. Some people like a particular airplane from a particular operator that's subject to owner approval, keep going back there. Again, it's usually driven by relationships, but it's an important factor for choosing, I would say.
As a broker?
Yes, I mean, especially in Middle East, they prefer to take owner's approval aircraft. Our customer always demand that take a pre-approval and quotas. Most of the time it happens with us, especially in summers. Especially in Europe, we suffer actually with this owner approval thing. So we always have to make the list, which is with owner approval and without owner approval. And we have to inform our customers accordingly. I have to find the way which is the easiest way to find the owner's approval. Then only we quote our client. I think you agree on that?
Yeah, I agree.
All do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's very important before quoting your clients to understand who are the operators that you're offering to them. Because if you know that your client likes a specific aircraft with a, say, non-flexible owner approval process, then you'd be risking losing that client. So you'd have to pick and choose who are the most suitable options for your client for the charter requested.
Philip?
Yes, so the aircraft we currently operate doesn't require owner approval. We've got full control over the schedule, the crew, where the aircraft's going, and that's really been a plus for us. The clients we work with and the brokers that work with us know that as well. So by the time that we submit an offer, it's something that we can fulfill.
Here's a nice question. There's more than 30 brokers in the UAE already. Is that too many? And is there a need for consolidation, or should there be more?
I think competition is great. I mean, the more the merrier, but at the end of the day, I'd argue we'd be looking into having more transparent brokers, more credible brokers, audited brokers that are offering good solutions to their customers. At the end of the day, you are a private advisor to your client, and you need to know what are you proposing to them, and you need to make sure that they are getting the level of service that they're paying for. So more competition it is.
I think there's many more than 30 brokers in Dubai. I mean, every week when we see requests coming through on Avanode for aircraft, it's a company we've never seen before. So I think it's more like 400. A lot of them comes out of the property market. They typically sell real estate, and now suddenly they've got access to yachts and business jets. It kind of goes together, which we understand. But that absolutely, drives pricing, it affects pricing, and service delivery at the end of the day comes back to relationships.
Yeah.
You're almost tainting the opportunity for the client if it's the wrong broker working with the client.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's an infinite demand possibly for brokers, because it's so easy technology-wise to set up. All you need is a laptop and a mobile phone, right? At least in that context, from a sort of
you don't need a laptop, assets. I think. You can just do it. You don't need a laptop.
And maybe just your phone. But it's all about relationships. I mean, I think a lot of these people will come and go. If you look at the more established players here, they've established and invested significantly, like ACS and others, their partner, established their people here in the region for, in some cases, quite a number of decades. And it's those relationships that bring the business back, because people trust them and they go back. So I think, the market has a natural way of sifting through those things, and people talk and they get references and referrals. And I think that tends to limit a little bit the number of people who ultimately stay in the market for the longer term.
Do you want more brokers?
I don't know who gave this number, 30 brokers, who had counted this 30. I mean, as Philip said, that maybe more than 4 every corner there is a broker in Dubai especially. And so many brokers have 1 or 2 clients and they're serving their client. And I mean, there has to be some consolidation, and because so many brokers, new brokers, they don't know exactly what they have to give it to their client. And
anyone can have an Avanode account, but it doesn't mean they know how to sell an aircraft.
Yes, it has to be very specific and limited, because we are in a niche market and we are just every now and then having one client, and opening their company is not the good idea for anyone. Yeah, it has to be filtered.
And I think Adnam is asking, why are companies not providing adequate training for their teams before sending them to the market? Charter is not just a transaction. Comments?
Yes, I think in any position training is important, and that stems from the top down and whoever is managing the team. I don't know in which context that was asked or mentioned. I think, I can just say in our team, we always try and source team members that's been in the business, that's got at least some understanding of aviation and business aviation. Some of them come out of operations, which helps a lot. And ultimately, whoever joins the team, it comes back to communication as part of the relationship side of it. The more you communicate with your client and you can keep them updated, the better. And with that is then the underlying base of knowing where you can operate, have a basic idea of crew and duty at least. But all of those things I'm pretty sure can be trained, and yeah.
We've got so many questions. Someone's saying, is anything being done to establish a quality label for brokers in the Middle East, like the Air Charter Association?
Same, we have answered, I think. The proper training, and civil aviation has to
regulate.
To regulate, and they should not issue license to everybody. This is my experience. I mean, someone should have at least 5 years of experience to establish a broker company.
Okay, can operators also be brokers? In the US, they call it brokerators. Genuinely, they do.
They are already brokers.
I wouldn't see why not. Ultimately, we don't have a large fleet of aircraft, so ultimately, when a client comes to us, we would like to deliver them a solution that we would be comfortable to take to them. So again, as much as we would be an operator having our own aircraft, we also rely on other operators with reliable, good aircraft that we can take to our clients should our aircraft be available. So in that sense, we'll most likely also being seen as a broker, yeah.
Okay, random question to end on. A few questions about pets on jets. What percentage of clients want to bring a pet on board?
Not quite a lot out of the Middle East, I'd say. Most of them are coming out of Europe. You do get the odd one outs where they travel for their holiday homes in France or Switzerland or all these European places where you'll get the pets on board. It's not very often.
Which is good because they shouldn't be in a smoky environment. For their own. Okay, final question. Trevor, are you going to have a better year than last year?
Yes, for sure. Much better. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a particular concentration on Asia is a particular interest for me at the moment, because I think we might see some interest out of China as things develop there between there and the US and people not owning airplanes. I think that's an opportunity.
Is that interest out of China as people move supply chains out to?
Yeah, I think more generally, if you can't own your own airplane for various reasons, but you still want to access and use one, charter is obviously the way of going about it. And these people are highly mobile, move around, so whether it's coming out of Hong Kong or Singapore. So it's an interesting development, what's going on there. And obviously, we don't have the end game yet, but there'll be a lot of stages. So it's an interesting one to watch.
Interesting. Philip?
Yes, I believe there's still growth opportunities in the market. There's specifically in this region. What will definitely affect that would be other operators entering the market. We do see some of the European operators sending their aircraft into this region in the hope to pick up some hours as they're being pressured in terms of what's happening in Europe with the regulations and environmental regulations. So somebody mentioned it earlier, there's a piece of the pie for everybody. I think it's ultimately about relationships between brokers. It's about relationships between operators, and that would strengthen the UAE business aviation market. But it would be cautiously some cautious decisions would need to be made. And I think, in some regions with a bit of a rejig when it comes to fleet, there could be opportunities as well.
I mean, we've seen already tremendous growth since we've opened last year. Comparing last year to this year with the MENA requests and the MENA clients, we've grown 133%. So we don't see it slowing down. And with the current changes in Saudi and the UAE and the visions that are happening close by, we can see it only going upwards from here. So it's a very exciting time for us here at Victor.
Yeah, I can see the same growth in my company. I started 2 years back, and from there to here, I mean, we almost 50% more this year, and especially from India, because they are looking for a long-range aircraft. And demand is good, and even in Dubai is increasing right now.
And on that cheery note, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.